Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol tournament recap. And today we are talking about the Heroes versus Villains event that was run in Gamebridge recently. So this is an event they've done in the past. I don't know if I did a recap on it last time, but basically the idea behind it is you're going to build two lists. They're both going to be fully affiliated. One of them will be a hero affiliation, and the other one will be a villain affiliation. And basically, when you go to roll prio, whoever wins the priority roll is going to pick whether they're playing their heroes or their villains, as well as whether they're doing their secures or their extracts. And then the opponent will play the opposite team. So, for example, I was bringing Avengers and Black Order, and if I got paired into, let's say, Kyle here, he was playing Webs and Criminal Syndicate, so if I won Prio, I would have the choice, and let's say I felt like playing my Avengers, I would say I'm going to play Avengers, and he would have to play Criminal Syndicate. So relatively straightforward, but it's a cool little twist to kind of add you're forced to build fully affiliated, so that can be really interesting for just kind of some, list building constraints. Maybe there's some splashes that you've come to rely on, and B, for the just kind of forcing some kind of cool matchups, forcing you to bring two lists and things like that. So yeah, this was a really fun event. There was 10 people, so it only ended up being 3 rounds. But we did end up with a clear winner. We had a 3-0, so it all worked out there. And I managed to pull second place, so I was pretty happy with that. I think I did fairly well there, and yeah. At first, I wasn't actually going to make a tournament recap on this one just because, I'm bringing two lists, so it's a little weird there. And then also just like it's a more casual event. I wasn't really playing my main competitive thing for 2 of my 3 games, but I figured, you know what, I did well enough that it's probably worth still talking about. I'm sure there's still something that can be gained for this, so yeah, I figured we'll go ahead and we'll talk through it. So, not too many people actually shared their list here, which is pretty reasonable because it's kind of awkward to do that for this. And for that reason, might have a slightly harder time trying to figure out what my opponents played against me, but I think for the most part, I remember these games pretty well. It was just yesterday at time of recording, so yeah, we'll go ahead and first of all, I'll go over my list really quickly. There's not too much to talk about here, so I decided to go Avengers for my first list just because Avengers is something I'm very comfortable with. And it's pretty similar to my standard competitive Avengers list. I've got all 3 Captain Americas. I've got Captain Marvel because she's been absolutely amazing. I'm running Iron Man, Luke Cage, and Hulk because they're all fantastic models there. And then this is where the list starts to kind of differ. I've been thinking about trying out Black Panther for a while, so I figured I'd give him a shot here. I threw Spider-Woman back in because I've always liked Spider-Woman, and why not? And Doctor Voodoo, just for a little bit more, attack diversity if I wanted some mystic attacks thrown in there, and then also the objective game that he plays very very well. So that was my Avengers roster. The other list that I played was Black Order, and for Black Order I basically just did fully affiliated and Taskmaster and Winter Soldier. I opted for only 1 stone on Thanos. I went with the Space Gem. Just because it made threat levels a lot easier, especially when I can't splash in a 2 threat or anything like that. So, um, yeah, Thanos had access to the Space Gem, and it worked really well for him. Corvus, of course, with Reality, Black Swan with Power. I opted not to have a stone on Ebony Maw. I did consider it briefly, but I figured I kind of if I had a 6 threat slot open, it was probably being taken up by Cosmic Ghost Rider. So I'd leave him as a 5 threat and see if he ends up getting played. But yeah, so nothing too crazy up there. Tactics cards wise, I think I went relatively simple here as well. I was running some of the kind of generically good backup cards, so I had Recalibration Matrix, no matter the cost. I think that's actually in both lists. Stuff like Escort to Safety and Brace for Impact, I think was in both, and then one side I had Patch Up, the other side I had Indomitable. So nothing too crazy here. Handful of affiliated cards for Black Order, because they actually have a surprising amount of either character or affiliation cards. So I brought a huge selection of those. Yeah, a lot of the kind of thought process was here was just kind of, well, it's fully affiliated, so I'm going to bring what I have access to. And then going into Crises, for, I think it was Avengers was first here, so I had Gamma, Intrusions, and Scoundrels. I figure I have a lot of cover denying attacks and things like that, so I don't mind playing Scoundrels. I can go wider with Sam and things like that. And then research stations, senators, and virus. Again, very disjointed. It's just kind of, I think my vendors list is fairly good into all three of these. Virus I pivoted in because I had Voodoo and Spider-Woman, so I have some drops and things like that. So I figured I'd try it out, see if I liked it. Also, play around and maybe consider putting it in my main list if it goes well. And then over on the Black Order side, I basically just went for the ones that were going to support the most murder. So, lots of C's, lots of E's, and then hammers because hammers are murdery. So that seemed like it would be a good idea. So that was the list, and yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll get into the games. Unfortunately, I did only remember to take pictures during one of my 3 rounds here. It was the middle round, so I'll be able to show those, but unfortunately for the first and the last round, I will just be talking through them from memory, just because I wasn't really thinking about it during those games, and I remembered, right after deployment in the second game. So, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start talking about this first game here, which was up against Daredevil, and Daredevil was running the event and unfortunately didn't share his list here, so that's okay though. We'll go ahead and open this back up and we'll go off of memory real quick here. So for round one, I won the parole to go first, and I decided to go with my heroes. His lists were Daredevil, Defenders, and Kingpin Criminal Syndicate. He also had Shadowland, I believe, in his Criminal Syndicate, and basically I just kind of looked at the list and felt a little more comfortable with the Kingpin matchup, especially with having Prio and kind of being able to dictate what sort of scenarios we were going to get. So I was kind of like, okay, we'll go with Kingpin Crimson. I think I have enough control in my Avengers list that I can really just kind of keep him off of the points for the most part, so I don't care that he counts as 2, because in theory I can make it so nobody's contesting those points. And then, of course, the worst of all things happened. I went for his extracts because I like them for the most part, and my secures, and I got that superpowered scoundrels, which normally I'd be pretty comfortable running scoundrels, just like in general with my Avengers list, but specifically against Kingpin Criminal Syndicate, I figured he had a few tools more than me to kind of deal with that sort of map layout, so I was a little concerned going into this one. I wasn't feeling super confident, but at the end of the day, I know he doesn't have a crazy amount of experience with Kingpin Criminal Syndicate. I have a lot of experience with Avengers, so I still felt like, okay, you know what, there's still definitely a game to be played here. He ended up opting for 20 threats. We were doing a relatively large list here, and on his end, he ended up bringing, so he had Kingpin, of course. He had Elektra with the grunts, he had Taskmaster, he had Rhino, and he had one more model. Who was it? Let me think about this one for a second. Right, he actually had 2 more. He had Black Cat and Bullseye. So if I remember correctly, he was something like 5 or 6 wide. I'm completely blanked now on the ones I've already said. So I know he had Elektra, Taskmaster, Black Cat, Rhino, Bullseye, and Kingpin. So yeah, he was actually 6 wide at 20 threat there. And then for my end, I went with a Steve Rogers list. I wanted to be able to control the center really, really hard, so I brought a Hulk along with him. So that was 10 threat right there. And then my other 10 threat, I brought Iron Man, again, more models with a push. I brought Sam, similar reasons, just being able to push things around, hopefully get some cool ricochets in here and there. So that's another 6, and then that leaves me with 4 thread open. I'm trying to remember what I did with that last slot there. Right, that final 4 threat slot I used for Black Panther because I wanted to try him out, and this felt like a right place to do that. He's going to be getting in close. He's not going to have to worry about the scoundrels cover too often because he's mostly melee oriented, and he has pushes on all of his attacks as well. So I really just didn't feel like letting Kingpin play the game, for example. And based on what else he brought, I was hoping to be able to just really play a really hard control game and just keep him off of all of the middle points. And that also kind of gives me cover if he's choosing not to burn move actions to get back onto them and stuff like that. So that was kind of the idea, was that I would be really, really just controlling that middle point, getting a small score advantage and just holding it for as long as I could. And for the most part, I think it worked very well. Basically, on the left side of the board, there was a big old size 5 building in between our 2 points. But it just so happened it was pretty much the perfect distance that Sam was able to charge on top of it and be within one of my back Infinity, or not Infinity Formula, Super Proud Scoundrel. The other scenario, of course, being Montesi. So Sam was in a really cool spot where he's going to have cover naturally, and also just because he's on top of the building. But he had that kind of, I'm going to rain shields down onto your back point, so that was kind of cool. For his back point, he deployed Elektra and Taskmaster, and actually Black Cat all kind of towards that left side of the board. Going down the middle, he of course had Rhino, and I think Bullseye was kind of middle bound as well. For myself, I did Hulk and Steve and Black Panther kind of towards the middle. I knew it was going to be hard to get the middle, so I had to put a good number of bodies onto that point early on. And then on the right side, I just did Iron Man and he had Kingpin, and Bullseye was kind of like in between the middle and the right, so he had a little bit of flexibility to pivot there if he needed to. And if I remember correctly, round one wasn't hugely eventful. I think I plinked a little bit of damage into Taskmaster with some shield throws from Sam, but I didn't get anything too crazy there. The other models in that area had stealth, so there was no targeting them. I wasn't able to get anything crazy going there. I think Hulk might have gotten a punch or two on the middle line. I know at the end of Hulk's turn, Hulk was the only model standing on the middle, or maybe I also still had Steve there. I think I walked Steve up fairly early and maybe grabbed a book with him. Not 100% sure who was holding my book at the start of the game. Thinking about it, I think it was Steve. But I know I did end up getting the middle book as well. So Steve was sitting on the middle with the book, and I think he might have plinked a couple damage into him with a bullseye or something like that. But what basically ended up happening was I had Iron Man on my back point, he got Kingpin on his back point, and I pushed away all the other models um, that were not mine on the point when I went with Hulk, which was the second last activation of the round. Obviously, because he had more models, he got the last say. So I ended up having Black Panther, Hulk, and Captain America sitting on the middle point, and he went up with Rhino, tried to punch someone because if he built some power, he would have been able to throw someone off the point and tie it. Unfortunately, he though because of the cover and just the fact that I think it was Cap he went for, and I was able to vibranium shield, so I had 6 dice. He wasn't able to push through any damage with that first Rhino punch, so Rhino got onto the middle point, but I had 3 bodies there, and even though Rhino counted as 2, it was still mine, so I took a little bit of a scoring lead right out the gate. And basically, as the game went on, I really just tried to hold that advantage as much as I could. I plinked some damage here and there with, Sam and Steve just kind of plinking around some shields. Hulk, I was obviously saving for the laters into the round because I didn't want to go with him too early and then kind of give him an opening to start dealing damage to him. So for the first few rounds of the game, he really avoided doing any damage to Hulk. I think I had Iron Man move up and maybe plink some shots into either the middle or Kingpin over on the other side, but I don't think I really got too much out of it. I think I might have pushed Kingpin off the point, but then he just walked back on it if I did. So I think maybe there was a couple damage Kingpins away from something like that, and that was about it. But Iron Man really wasn't super relevant in the second round. That round, pretty much everything just kind of happened around the middle of the board. I think, um, if I remember correctly, Rhino once again just kind of failed to do anything with his builders there because he was starting this round now on 2 power, and I didn't want to punch him and power him up so he wouldn't be able to stampede if he failed the builders. And unfortunately for him, that's kind of what happened. I don't remember whether it was Panther or Cap. Probably Cap, because Cap was still holding the objective at this point that he was going into, but he wasn't able to get anything really through on him, so that was unfortunate for him. And then I think I ended up actually taking Black Cat down this round, if I remember correctly. I think Hulk just kind of went into Black Cat hard to start wounding some models. Um, might have also gotten Bullseye this round. I think I either threw something at Bullseye or I punched Bullseye and he just went down like nothing. So I was doing all right going into the third round. I had a pretty solid scoring lead because I'd been able to. I think we might have only tied the middle in the second round, but it didn't really matter because I still had the books lead. Somewhere around this time, though, he started making a bit of a comeback. He dropped Captain America. He was able to steal his book with someone. I don't remember who it was. I think maybe it was Elektra, but I think Elektra might have just had his back book. I don't remember exactly how that went. Um, I know Hulk had mine, and then what he ended up doing was he went for the Rhino play, and this is a robbery. Iron Man threw him off the back point and stole his book, but Iron Man basically turned around and was like, okay, fine, I Helios laser you now. So he took the book back. He took Rhino down to his injured side. Also, this round, I decided to send Hulk over to hang out with Kingpin on his back point, and Hulk not only threw Kingpin off of the point, but also managed to daze him with this. So, big deal there. Also, for what it's worth, here in the second round, he played um, what's it called? All according to plan. So he had Prio, and then in the third round, he actually ended up playing Shadow Organization to try and cut out, any of my range attacks, really hamper Iron Man and Steve and Sam's ability to have a huge influence on the game. But thankfully, the one character he didn't do it to was Rhino, and then also Iron Man was right beside him anyways for the Helios laser, so I was still able to Helios laser Rhino. Hulk dealt with Kingpin, so Kingpin was flipped now. I think I put a little bit of damage here or there into some of his other models. I think Taskmaster might have gotten flipped this game or this round as well, because I think what I did was I charged Sam onto his back point, which admittedly was a stupid idea. I should have kept him just as safe as possible this round and just abused the extra power that he was sitting on for Helios laser. Instead, I charged him onto his back point, and he got dazed by, I believe, Elektra and Taskmaster this round, or one of them. I think it was just Taskmaster, actually. Or, no, Sam took down Taskmaster, and then Elektra took down Sam for it, which, understandable. But I was still doing fairly well here. I think Black Panther also went down at some point this round. So my team was starting to flip, but a lot of his team was flipped as well, and I still had that advantage from earlier, and of course now I'd gotten this robbery out of the way, and I'd Helios lasered Rhino, so he wasn't even healthy anymore. Of course, this means Rhino has a lot of power for the rest of the game, but at this point, it was really hard for him to make a comeback. So we go into the final rounds, and I mean, he has a valiant effort. I believe he takes down Iron Man at one point. He throws a stagger on Hulk at one point. Taskmaster goes and takes Sam off the table. And then he puts a bunch of damage into Captain America on his flip. Notably, a large chunk of it coming from Bullseye, who, he's going to do those auto damages. And then I needed to get him off the point, so Cap ended up attacking Bullseye, and he did his parting shot thing to deal more damage to him. So he plinked a bunch of damage out on me. Panther unfortunately had the unfortunate situation of he had to go into Black Cat, so his rerolls were kind of useless here. But I needed Black Cat down because she was going to be a problem for later rounds. Having an objective steal was a big deal. So I kept Hulk as far away from her as possible, and I just basically tried to wail into her as much as I could. Got a decent chunk of damage into her, but not enough to take her down. I think most of it actually came off of the pounce, if I remember correctly, so nothing too interesting there. But then really unfortunate for him on the other side of the table. Hulk basically just one-tapped Kingpin. I dropped I think a 10 dice spender because at this point Hulk had taken a little bit of damage, and Kingpin just went down, which was really unfortunate for him. I mean, there was a terrain thrown stuff available for that as well, but like the fact that I didn't need it allowed me to then have some other control. I think this round Bullseye also went down. I think I threw someone at Bullseye, and Bullseye died to that, so that was not great for him either. And yeah, in general, it was he'd started making a comeback towards this round, but it just wasn't quite enough. Stuff like Kingpin going down really ruined the chances to make a full comeback here. And then going into the final round, it was basically just like I was, I think, one or 2 points away from game, so I just needed to hold on to as much as I could. And at this point in the game, he only had I think Rhino, Elektra, who might have taken 1 or 2 damage, but she was actually still healthy. And then he also had, I want to say, Taskmaster still left on his injured side. So it was kind of funny. Taskmaster, I first activation, I dazed Elektra because I didn't want her doing anything. I think I had Hulk come back into the middle and just throw everything into her, if I remember correctly. And then basically from there, I was just like, okay, well, Elektra's taken care of. He needs to pretty much table me, so I'm just going to try and deal with Taskmaster here, and I decided to do this with Panther. Now, note that going into this, Panther had already taken 1 damage on his injured side. So Panther goes for, full rerolls, makes an attack into Taskmaster. He also threw himself at him, so I think I did maybe 1 or 2 damage there as well. So I go for an attack with full rerolls into Taskmaster, and I get maybe 1 damage. And then he goes for the counter strike, and he gets 2 on me, and it's like, oh, well, that hurt. Let's do it again anyways, because if I take Taskmaster down, it's basically guaranteeing that it's my game. So I go for it again. I do, again, maybe 1 or 2 damage, but Taskmaster definitely survives. And then he counter strikes again. This time it's 6 dice counter strike. And he gets actually, I think he got more than enough crits and wilds, but I think he got like 4 or something like that. But 3 was all he needed, and he actually takes Black Panther down on my turn. But unfortunately, after this point, we're kind of looking at the board, and it's like, well, I have Iron Man left who hasn't even activated yet. All he has to do is double walk to a point. Or I have a Hulk who has 11 health. All you have left is a Rhino. I still have Brace for Impact online, so you can't even use terrain throws to help you get this handled. There's really nothing he could do at this point to take both of these models off the table, short of like extreme dice spikes. So he went for it. He left Iron Man alive on like 2 health or something like that. So I basically was just like, well, Hulk wins me the game by himself now, so I'm just gonna have Iron Man, you know, throw a Friday Eye Repulsor into Taskmaster, see if I can finish this model off, take Taskmaster off the board, and I ended up scoring 3 points in the final round after stealing the book from him. So yeah, that's kind of how that final round played out, and ended up being in my favor, just probably for the most part because I was a little more familiar with the list that I was playing than he was the list he was playing. But still was a really good game. He's a great opponent. Had a good time, and yeah, this was my one and only Avengers game of the event. So I was kind of intending to do that. I kind of said going into the event I wanted to play Avengers once or twice, but I didn't want to play them the entire event because that's kind of all I ever play. So I wanted to try something a little different this time around. But yeah, that was game one. So round two was into Dutch. I've played against him again in a few events in the past, and he was bringing out Shield today with Invincible Iron Man. He also had Fury in the roster, so he had the leadership pivot if he wanted it. We ended up pulling Research Station and Gamma. It was my priority, and like I said, I'd only really wanted to play Avengers once, maybe twice this event, so I picked Black Order just for that reason. And turns out we both had both of these scenarios in our list, so I don't even remember which one of us was Research and which one was Gamma. But of course, that leaves us with a 15 threat locked game. And yeah, this is where kind of having that one stone Thanos was a big deal, and you'll see why in a second. Unfortunately, he didn't share his list, so I can't show what his entire thing was, but we have pictures of this game, so I'm not going entirely off of memory here. So this was our deployment here. Obviously, everything is straight down the middle. There's our Researcher and Gamma. These guys we marked as size 3s. And this was a size 5, and these were 4s. Not that they were really going to be relevant because we were playing very much just the middle of the board here. So I had, of course, Corvus with Reality, Thanos with Space, and Proxima at 15 threat, which works out really well. Obviously, at 2 stone Thanos, you're not able to quite do this combination. You have to swap something out somewhere here. So I was really happy to be able to drop this exact list down. And then, of course, over on his side of the board, he had Invincible Iron Man there. He had War Machine in his list, which was definitely an interesting choice, but he ended up working really well for him. He had Fury Senior, he had Black Widow, and he had Bucky. So going into the first round, basically, I passed as much as possible. He played very passively, and a few of his models were just kind of sitting up on the back points here. And then eventually, I moved Proxima up. I tried to grab cover on this point if I could, and it was working out okay. He moved up Iron Man to somewhere about here. Iron Man took a shot at Proxima, got the wild trigger, shoved her back, and she was now off the point. So I was like, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but now I've got a window here for someone I can probably hit. So I had Thanos, walk, Space Stone, and then Cosmic Portal in Iron Man. So this point in the game, or I mean, from the very start of the game here, my objective was very much just kill Iron Man. He was his leader. He had Helios Laser and Stark Armory. So Iron Man had a huge target on his back this game, and I knew he needed to be the first model off the table. So I punch into Iron Man. I don't do anything particularly impressive, which was a little unfortunate. I did get the wild, but the only away angles would have just thrown him out of reach of Corvus. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll stay here. We're fine with this. I think I ended up getting 1 or 2 damage on the punch. So he wasn't in too bad of a spot with Iron Man here. But then he had some other models move up. I think Bucky moved up next and maybe plinked like 1 damage into Thanos with a rifle shot, which was a little unfortunate because with cover and all that, I think Thanos' odds to take damage were not all that great there, but is what it is. And then I go ahead and I mothership in Corvus, and Corvus goes for a double tap on Mr. Iron Man, ends up doing, like, again, maybe 1 or 2 damage, which was really unfortunate, just not super great on the attack rolls here, but was what it was, and we basically moved to the round. He plinked a couple more shots into Thanos or Corvus. I think he might have did one or two more damage. So pretty much everyone on my team is looking on, a couple damage at this point. And then he used Fury to after he gained one power for shooting. He bumped someone else onto the point, and I think he just double moved War Machine onto the point. So he ended up having two models there to tie me. So we tied the middle point. I didn't have anyone on my back point, so he scored 1-0 in the first round. Then we go into the second one, and let me just check real quick. Yeah, unfortunately, that's a little later. So we go into the second one, and what happens? I forgot to take a picture of the end of the first round, but basically, I had Corvus sitting on top of this piece of terrain, so he'd have cover from anything coming in from range. I had Thanos right here, and I had Proxima back here. And I knew this round I wanted to take out Iron Man, but he did get to play Stark Armory during the power phase. So he's got this range 2 bubble around Iron Man, who's pretty much right here. Of just like kind of a defensive, or not defensive, offensive aura of that +1 dice. So I knew that was something I wasn't going to be able to get rid of this round, but I wanted to take out Iron Man anyways, just to soften him up so next round I could deny the Helios laser and potentially the leadership. So I ended up going with Corvus first, or actually Proxima first, I think. I had to walk. I was just out of range of being able to spear throw in, but I walked and I spear throwed onto Iron Man. Did maybe 1 or 2 damage with Proxima there, which was nice. And then I had Corvus go in to finish him off. And Corvus did what Corvus does. Corvus took down Iron Man, and I think he might have taken down either Fury Senior or Bucky this round as well, because I think the first builder took down Iron Man, or maybe it at least gave me enough power that I was able to spend her with the second action. So I ended up getting a spender into, a 5 dicer into one of these other models as well. Or I think what I did was I spendered Fury Senior, and then I used the builder generated from the flurry to kill Iron Man, something along those lines. I don't remember exactly how that went there, but I know those 2 models went down here. So unfortunately for me, though, that was the only activation I was going to get this round, because then what happened was War Machine sitting right here beside everyone. He decided to go, and his beam went up to a 6 dicer because of Stark Armory, and he just dropped it on Corvus and Thanos. And Thanos from this first 6 dice beam took 5 damage. Thanos didn't block a single thing, which was really unfortunate. Corvus, I think, took a couple damage as well. And Corvus ended up surviving this round on 2 health. I think for his second beam, he went into either Corvus and Thanos again and just didn't do very much to Thanos or to Corvus, but I know he took out Thanos with the second beam, which was really unfortunate for me. So Thanos got denied an activation here. Proxima, I think also, whether it was from War Machine or maybe Bucky, Proxima also went down this round, and then he basically had Widow just double move to go steal my back point. So he scored a bunch of points this round and got the Researcher and everything. It wasn't looking super pretty for me, but I did the main goal I wanted, which was taking down Iron Man, so that was good. We were off to an okay start going into the next round. So we go into the next round, and basically here is, well, I mean, this is where we can get into how this round ended here, where I basically had Corvus start us out here, and Corvus was like, okay, we're gonna take what's his name? We're gonna take Iron Man off the board here. We're gonna do some other attacks. We're gonna take Bucky down. We're gonna put a bunch of damage, and of course Proxima was helping with this too. So we took Iron Man off the table. Actually, he might still be here at this point in time. No, I think this was the end of the round. So we took Iron Man off the table. We dazed, I think, Bucky with Corvus and Proxima. So they had a solid start. Then he ended up going with probably either War Machine. Well, I mean, it had to have been either War Machine or Fury. Did a little bit more damage into, I think, again, either Corvus or Thanos. At this point, Corvus received a bleed and was brought down to 1 health remaining. And then Thanos took, actually, it had to have been Fury, because Thanos got lit on fire by Fury there, which was really unfortunate for him, but was what it was. I basically had Thanos go next, and Thanos dealt with dealt with War Machine, so War Machine got dazed this round as well. So all he had left was Fury and then Widow, and what Widow basically did from my back point, she moved up, she did her range 2 spender onto Thanos to try and throw the stagger on him, which as you can see worked, and then she got the reposition, the elusive trigger and backed up. So this round I actually ended up scoring the middle. I started kind of coming back on points a little bit after this round, but not nearly enough because obviously I was still very far behind. So we weren't in an amazing spot, but we'd slowed him down a lot. We dazed a lot of his models, and now things were going to start coming off the table. Which is kind of what happened. We went into the next round, and I basically just went on a murder spree here. This is kind of what the end of the board state looked like here. So I had Corvus finish off War Machine, and then he had to retreat because of the Got Your Back. So I basically used the movement off of the Death Blow to get out of Got Your Back range. Before that, Corvus and Proxima had also taken down the Fury Senior. So that was good. Those were two models off the table completely for him. Widow ended up double moving over to around to back to her home point because he needed to deny me bringing the researcher all the way there. So that was what he ended up doing. I think this was after we'd moved the researcher again because Widow at this point in the game was still healthy. And as you can see, he's become up to 12 points. So he did still score up this round. Thanos ended up obviously shaking that stagger. He got bleed from, I want to say, Bucky went into him, did something like 4 or 5 damage to him. And so going into the next round here, and I believe this was the last picture I had. So going into the final round here, basically, Thanos was taking about 5 damage. Corvus ended up bleeding out at the end of his turn, and Proxima was still in full health because he hadn't bothered to punch her since he flipped her. So I had a pretty good team going in here. I, of course, got priority. I started with Corvus Proxima. So Corvus had to waste a move action, but it was no big deal. He walks around. He takes out Bucky. He had enough, I think, to spend her. So Bucky went down. I ended up dazing Widow, and then it was just a scoring round at this point. So I pushed the Researcher. I end up scoring the back point and the middle point, and that was, I think I was sitting on 8 from the previous round, so here I go up to, what was it? I think we did the math and I was scoring 6 points because it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the middle, so I end up scoring 6 this round. So that brings me up to 14. All he has left is an injured Widow, so instead of actually playing it out, we basically just talked it through. We were like, okay, look, we could play this out to see if anything spikes super weird, but if you want to just roll Widow into Corvus and Thanos, I patched up Thanos as well, so Thanos was on full health. I'm not going to kill Widow because looking at the board, you're at 12, I'm at 14. I have 3 models and all the ways to score in the world here. Widow can't push any of my guys off of points, so there's no world where you score up on me here. I'm just going to grab my 6 points again this round. There's pretty much nothing you can do to stop that, and we'll call it a day. He agreed. We rolled out a couple of attacks from Widow into, I think, Thanos and Corvus to see if she could kill them before they would get to do whatever they wanted to do. She failed to do so, not surprisingly there. So we were just like, okay, well, I score 6 points again this round. I go to 20, you end at 12, and that's the game. So yeah, it was a really good game. Playing Black Order was a lot of fun. It was a very different change of pace there. So that was pretty cool. We talked about it, and we were talking about specifically the big decision point that he made, which was not bringing Nick Fury. Of course, when I say that, Fury Jr. There was a good logic behind his choice not to bring him, which was the grunts were going to be scoring the extra victory points off of Thanos every time I took them out, which was very, very true and could have mattered a lot. On the flip side, having something like Eye in the Sky available to him would have been really, really annoying to play around. I mean, Corvus absolutely hates that. Thanos and Proxima can get around it a little bit better, but really a big deal for a model like Corvus to have to play around that. So there was maybe something there where had Fury been on the table, this would have been a very, very different game for him. But otherwise, it was a really fun game. Things went pretty poorly for me in the beginning, but they turned around really, really quickly, and suddenly models were just dropping off the table for him. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, that was round 2. So going into round 3, I got paired up against Kyle. Now, Kyle's a very, very good Web Warrior player, and I kind of looked at the matchups here and was like, okay, so this is really going to come down to priority. And I said this to him before the game started. Basically, what's going to happen here is if he wins priority, he's going to pick webs. He's going to make me play against his webs with Black Order. Black Order being an affiliation where I am not super, I'm not super comfortable playing Black Order in a competitive sense. I've played them a couple times at locals, and I've played them now one game in a tournament. So I really don't have much experience with them there. But he's got tons of experience with webs. He plays against Black Order all the time. He really knows that matchup in and out. So if it came down to that matchup, it was probably his game. On the flip side, he's got very little experience in Criminal Syndicate compared to my experience in Avengers. It's a matchup that I have played before, so for the most part, I'm fairly comfortable with. And I think that one goes a lot in my favor. So we basically said, like, we could pretty much roll priority and call it here. Obviously, that's not what we did. We still played it out because you never know. But he won the priority roll, and it was his webs versus my Black Order. And we ended up getting Cosmic Invasion and Alien Ship. So again, out of all the extracts that it could have been, it was the worst one possible for me here. And it was my extracts as secures, so he got his D map there no matter what on his secures, and then I had Alien Ship for my extracts, which wasn't ideal here because that was relatively wide, so it was going to help him spread out even more and score up even faster. So that was problematic for me. I ended up going with Cosmic Ghost Rider, Corvus Leadership, which brings me to 11. We were playing 16, so my last 5 was Black Swan with the Power Stone. I don't know if this was necessarily an amazing list or what I should have done differently here. Obviously, this is one of those weird situations where Thanos had 2 stones would have been better, but typically I was trying to avoid 16 threats for the most part as Black Order, because, I mean, Cosmic Invasion isn't exactly one of our favorite scenarios to begin with, and neither is Paranoia, so didn't really want either of those in the first place. He ended up going, obviously, a fairly wider list. He had Spectacular Spider-Man, he had Miles, he had Gwen, he had Spider-Woman, and he had Black Cat, which were all pretty good models for this matchup. And yeah, it kind of played out how you expect it to. I mean, looking at the score, it was 18-4, right? So it wasn't even close score-wise, which it was never going to be. If I was going to win that game, it was probably going to be through a table. And basically, I had to give up a side very early, so he had Spider-Woman basically holding the right side of the game, or the left side of the game the entire time. Over on the right side of the game, he had Miles and Gwen, and basically I sent up Black Swan there to go punch Miles. Didn't get anything too significant through, but then I was able to Mothership in Corvus, and Corvus tried to punch Miles as well, and I ended up leaving him alive on 1, which was really unfortunate for me. Gwen came in. I think she actually ended up doing like 2 damage to Corvus or something like that as well, which was kind of wild. But so Gwen comes in, does her thing over there. Meanwhile, down the middle, he safe grabbed using Cat and the Spider. So Black Cat safe grabbed the middle point and then backed up. He also had Spectacular Spider-Man just kind of hanging out on the back point there. I think towards the end, he actually started trying to move him towards my back point, but that was his final activation of the round. So before that, I had Cosmic Ghost Rider basically cross the map. He did roll okay on the first turn. I think he rolled 3 power, so he was rolling in with 4. So CGR basically crossed the map. He had to use a move action, unfortunately, but a move action and a place, and I was able to make a single attack into Black Cat. Didn't end up doing anything meaningful to her. I think I did maybe a couple damage, but not enough to take her down. So unfortunately, there was nothing I was able to deny him really on the first point or on the first turn there. So he scored a bunch of points right out the gate. And then round 2 was kind of miserable for the Black Order there. What ended up happening was Miles dazed himself on the alien ship core, which was kind of the worst possibility here because it didn't give me the extra power from the Corvus leadership. CGR didn't end up getting Psychosis. I rolled relatively low on my power. And so now Miles is at full health here. And I don't have Psychosis Ghost Rider, so... Oh, and he also got 2 on the damage for the cores, so Corvus ended up taking 2 more damage and was now actually looking really, really low, which was not great. He also had Gwen in a prime position to be doing some lifesavers on Miles, so Corvus wasn't going to be really efficient at taking down anything over here either. So I decided Black Swan was going to be the better one to do it. I really wanted his leadership out of the game because it had been doing a lot for him already so far. So I was kind of like, okay, we're going to target out Miles. We're going to try and kill him before he gets to go with anything here. So I go with Black Swan, and she unfortunately doesn't do very much. She does something like 2 or 3 damage, I think, into Miles. Leaves him alive for sure, though, and then Miles turns around. He goes into the all webbed up turn, and he takes out Corvus. He also, I think, puts a little bit of damage into Black Swan. But the unfortunate part about how he took down Corvus was he did get the throw. So what he did was he threw him just out of range 2, and because of the way power had been working out so far this game, I was able to play Blood Despair, but I wouldn't have been in range of anything because I couldn't afford the spender. So unfortunately, there was no Blood Despair to be done there, and that just kind of fizzled out there. So that was unfortunate. And then I ended up going with Ghost Rider next. Ghost Rider didn't really do anything this turn. I think he might have finished off Black Cat this round if I remember correctly, but it wasn't super meaningful because I don't think I was able to actually pick up the core. So the more I think about it, I probably didn't finish off Black Cat this round. I might have just blinked a couple more damage into her. Um, so CGR really didn't do anything of huge consequence. I think I lit Black Cat on fire, and I might have also lit Spectacular Spider-Man on fire, but no real damage going through on either of them. And then he turns around with Gwen and finishes off Black Swan as well, who had picked up Miles' old core. So now Gwen had a core as well, which was really annoying. So round goes pretty terribly for Black Order. I ended up scoring 0 points, and he scored a handful this round as well, because he basically was scoring exactly like he was the round before, but if anything, I think better. So it's really, really not looking good for me, and now suddenly things started turning around a little bit for the Black Order. I started actually dropping some models. I got the Psychosis token on Cosmic Ghost Rider this next round, and he took out, I think, Black Cat and Spectacular Spider-Man, if I remember correctly, so he did relatively well there. But then over on the other side of the board, I took Miles off the table, but that was it. I wasn't able to quite get to Gwen, so Gwen basically just ran away holding this cube because he was already in a pretty good position scoring-wise. And he scores a handful more points, and at this point we're going into what's probably the final round of the game, where I basically need to wipe every model he has on the board, and it's not looking super likely because a couple of them are just flipping up, but he doesn't have a leadership anymore, so that's working in my favor. And I start with CGR. He's got Psychosis. He rolled a decent amount of power again, so he's looking relatively good to do some rude things. And I think what I ended up doing was I was kind of like, okay, he's the only model on the board here who's actually capable of hitting Spider-Woman, who'd basically just been, at this point, she'd rotated down to my back point, but she was worth 2 points per round, and she hadn't been touched because she'd been ignored for the most part the entire game. So I basically moved towards her, I pulled her in, and then I did a Power Cosmic Penance there just to ensure it. Completely blew her up. She was gone, which was great for me. And then I think I threw like a 6 dicer into Spectacular Spider-Man or something like that, just to try and plink some extra damage out here and there, which might have done a little bit. I don't remember exactly how well it did, but Corvus basically was left in a weird position where he wasn't very relevant anymore. He was able to, at best, I think, move and do like a 4 dicer or something like that. So nothing really he was going to do to impact the game. And then Black Swan, I think, might have tried to do some plink into Black Cat and Spectacular Spider-Man, but again, nothing really major that I could do. The best attack I could get into Gwen, who was running away holding a cube, was like a 5 dice at range with cover on Cat or on Gwen. So I think I did end up going for it, but I ended up doing like 2 damage maybe to her. So not anything really worth doing. And that was kind of it there. Like the Black Cat, or Gwen rather, ran away, scored some points. Black Cat and Spectacular Spider-Man just moved to go contest some things and score some extra points. So that's how he ended over 16. But unfortunately, it was just the attrition started swinging my way a little bit too late there. And of course, he was much more familiar with that matchup and his list than I was with mine. So definitely went very much his way for those reasons. And of course, just, he is a very good player who knows how to play webs quite well. So that ended up going his way, and he managed to take the first place overall after that one. So good for him in that regard there. And that is going to do it for this Heroes versus Villains tournament recap here. So, yeah, just kind of overall, I'm pretty happy with how I did. Like I said, I don't think there was much I could have done about the last matchup there. At the end of the day, I don't play Black Order competitively, or at least not to that level. So I don't really know how to deal properly with the Web Warriors, or really just teams like that in general. I was really playing Black Order in a very like I'm gonna run at you and kill stuff way, and if my dice are feeling hot, then I probably win. If my dice are not feeling hot, then you probably win. And of course, there's ways to mitigate that, and I'm sure more skilled Black Order players than me would play in a much more technical way. But they kind of played them in this event just to kind of play a very, simple, just gonna run at you and kill you list because that seems like something that would be fun. And when I wanted to play, a more competitive list, I'd play my Avengers list there, obviously. So, but yeah, I think it went pretty well overall. I was really happy with how I did my first two games. In my third game, I kind of accepted going into it that it was going to be a loss, so I was just playing to have fun, anyways. Um, and yeah, it was a great event. All my opponents were great players. I had a good time in all three games, and yeah, there's not much more to say about it than that. Like I said, not quite as competitive as an event as the ones I usually do these recaps on, just because the list building restrictions and stuff kind of lean towards a more casual scene, which is totally fine. They're still super fun events to go to, so I figure it was still worth doing a tournament recap on. It's just a little bit of a different style from the usual ones, but yeah, I think once again, congratulations there to Kyle taking first place with his Web Warriors. They did a lot of work for him, and he's a very good player with those. So congratulations to him there. We also, of course, did have Reed, who's on the channel all the time. He was there as well. He was trying out his X-Men, obviously, and his new Cabal list because he's been playing a lot with Red Skull 3, and he saw pretty good success with that. He obviously went 2-1 there, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, that is going to do it pretty much for this tournament recap here. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. It means a lot. Let's me see what kind of videos you guys are enjoying and things like that. So yeah, that's about all I got for now. So until next time, everybody, have a great day. Peace.